Welcome everyone to another edition of LifeWorks Live. This is a show where you can call in with the tough questions and get the real answers. And we haven't had a lot of call-ins to this point, but
That's okay.
we certainly welcome call-ins if anybody has any questions or wants to discuss the topic that we're discussing on the day. And today we are talking about emotional connections. And I think we realize that our goal in relationship is to actually have good emotional connections, and that really makes for a better, more fulfilling relationship. And we're actually going to spend a lot of time actually not just talking about the emotional connections, but barriers to the emotional connections. And so you can actually recognize the barriers that you may have around emotional connections and how it's actually limiting your relationships. So we chose this topic because we're going to be hosting a Conscious Quest workshop this Sunday right here in Lethbridge at Hudson's from 1 till 4. And we'll be expanding on this topic a little more and doing some real fun exercises around it, and you'll be able to learn a lot about yourself and maybe even about your partner if you happen to have a partner with you. But I'll remind you, this isn't an event for just couples or partners. You can come if you're single, if you're divorced or separated, or you're looking. Everybody's welcome, and all ages are welcome. I think everybody will find it interesting and fun. Today we're also going to go into our Conscious Toolbox, where we pull out one of our tools that will help you with everyday things that can be a challenge in everyday life. And then Lisa's going to talk about a weekly challenge as well. So it's something that we've experienced ourselves and how we dealt with it. All right, what else we got, Lisa?
We have the conscious question of the day, and this question comes up for us all the time, and it is, what do we do when we're just too afraid to get past the small talk in a relationship and talk about the issues, because it always ends up in a fight? So also we'll answer any calls or questions that come up, and we get lots of questions from the patients and clients that come through the clinic. And I want to mention, it looks like my hair is on. My hair is
sparkling.
Energetically sparkling, so I must be putting off a lot of energy today because it looks like it's dancing on my head. So that's
must
fun.
be something different. I don't know.
There must be something going on.
Maybe the blinds are open or something different lighting.
Anyways,
Anyway.
that's me today.
Okay.
And,
You got that?
yeah.
Okay, so first of all, let's answer the question, what is an emotional connection? So in a relationship, it's when you can actually trust your partner emotionally. Now, there's lots of different ways you can trust your partner or not trust your partner, but trusting them emotionally is a very core part of a relationship. There's things about trusting people, maybe financially, or trusting how they'll treat you in certain ways, or there's lots of ways again that there's things around trust. But if you want to look at it from an emotional perspective, it's where you're in a supportive, committed, respectful, and an engaged relationship. And so in order to get all those things in place, you have to be actually looking at emotionally how you are connecting with your partner. So when you are emotionally connected to your partner, one of the benefits of that is actually it gives you more strength to deal with the things that are coming up in your life. It's basically when the saying, "My partner's got my back," and when you know somebody's got your back, and you're emotionally connected, there's that emotional support there, and that allows you to again face anything. Yeah, it really, really can make a lot of things a lot easier to deal with. So if you fail to actually be able to read and respond to the other person's emotions or their emotional state or how they're doing, that really can throw up a barrier to your relationship and how you connect with each other. And so if you're missing out on these emotional clues and these emotional opportunities to get more connected, it's going to be detrimental to your relationship. So just a few more of the benefits of having an emotional connection are increased respect for each other. And so when you're emotionally connected, you're actually respecting each other because you know where you're at, you know where they're at, you know what their feelings are and things, and you're able to build respect around that. There can be even better sexual connection, which is always a great thing, right?
Always a great thing.
And a big thing for women is women, they want the emotional connection before they say yes to sex or feel connected and wanting to have sex. Men often are not as invested in the emotional connection part as they are in getting the sex. But when they recognize that allowing that emotional connection will get them what they're desiring, that's always that works out good for everybody. And you'll have better conversations.
Yeah.
because conversation is going to be around real things.
And it'll be safe.
It's
Safe conversation.
Safe conversation. That's right. Yeah. So improved communication skills. You'll start learning how to communicate with the other, communicating your feelings, and actually understanding what's your partner's feelings. And you basically you'll have a lot more fun, just because again, when you're connected, you're more comfortable. Again, you feel safe. That's when you can relax and let go, and that's when you start having fun. Not when you're kind of uptight and walking on eggshells or not feeling safe in a situation or comfortable. But when you're feeling safe and comfortable, and that's when you can really let loose.
And we hear from a lot of people that just say we would like to be more emotionally connected, but we just don't know how. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We just don't know what to do because we're fighting all the time, or we're busy with kids, or we're busy with our jobs, or we just can't find time to take the time to connect. So.
And as in all parts of life, there's always a list of excuses not to
Yeah.
take a step towards connection or intimacy or whatever that step might be. But it's actually making that conscious choice again to say, no, we're going to make this a priority in our relationship. Otherwise, it could be doomed.
Well,
Ultimately.
even in our coaching business, we say, well, what are you making time for? And if you can make time for watching a movie or taking your dog for a walk or making sure you eat healthy, then what's more important than emotional connection?
Mm-hmm.
It should be on your agenda that's what you do every single day. So we're going to start off. We've got a lot of signs of barriers that we're going to cover today. And let me add that at our workshop on Sunday, this is where we're going to have fun and we're going to really understand these barriers. So we're just going to give you a sneak peek on the barriers of emotional connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to touch on these different barriers, but during the workshop, it's going to be more about getting awareness about what yours actually are.
What yours are.
And even if your partner's there or some that you're interested in getting a better understanding of what theirs might be too, and having an understanding not only for yourself, but of a partner if you happen to have one.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you have a partner or not. You've had a relationship somewhere in your life that you've been close to and connected to, and if you're no longer in that relationship, you always wonder why, right? And you often blame.
Yeah, this could give you some really good clues as to why, right?
Yeah.
And it's certainly things to look at or look for in the future, and things to possibly avoid and or work and look at them and work with them in a different way.
So going right to number 1, unresolved issues, and that could be within our family or our relationships. Because all of us, let's face it, we bring our past into our relationships. If we haven't really looked at what held us back in the other relationships, we're never going to move forward and have a successful one. There's an old saying that says the past is the past and has nothing to do with me now, and that's not true. It's there. It's a part of your experience. There's painful memories there. There are experiences that weren't successful, and they'll hold you back if you haven't really resolved them. So, and what's going to happen is the same experiences are just going to keep reoccurring in the next relationship, and you'll feel like, oh, there's a red flag. I know that this probably isn't the person for me because they're showing me things that were painful and uncomfortable in my past relationship. But really, we never clear the slate when we leave one relationship and move to the next, unless we face everything that wasn't successful in that relationship.
It's always easy to point the finger at the other person and say,
they
oh,
weren't
there's
this and
another
they
one
weren't
like that.
that.
And it's like, well, you know what, why did you attract or why did you choose another person like that? And it's like, well, maybe because there's something about me that I can actually look at.
Right.
So.
And we'll often say, well, I'm not going to let that happen again because I did that in my past relationship and I'm not going to do that again. But really, that's just a way of protecting yourself. We have to face the times that we withdraw and we fight and we blame or we're pleasing or sabotaging the relationship, so that we're trying our best that we can, but when we don't know what to do, we go back to the old ways unless you faced it and changed it.
Exactly.
So.
And unconsciously, some of these past wounds will create this fear or reluctance for intimacy and closeness, and so that's why, like you say, the sabotaging of it. It's like you're not doing it consciously, but unconsciously, the person starts to get a little more closer. That emotional connection starts to happen, and you're like, "Oh, that's scary. I'm going to throw a wrench in. I'm going to throw a wrench in this, and it's not going to happen."
Absolutely.
And as much as you want it consciously, unconsciously, you can still push it away.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 2 is waiting for the right time to have the important conversations. And we've kind of touched on this before in other discussions we've had, but recognizing that it's important to not let the important conversations just slide forever and never get back to them. So sometimes it's not appropriate to have it right at the time that something comes up, because somebody might be triggered, or there might be too much going on, or there might be children present, or whatever like that. But you've definitely got to say, I am going to commit to something came up, or there's something that I know that we have to have this conversation, and you make a point of having it, whether that's later that day, or you say the next day, but you don't want weeks or months to go by and then you're just like, well, we'll just kind of let that sleep under the rug, and then we don't have that conversation, and then because you might be saying, well, then we won't have the conflict, because you're maybe afraid of conflict around that conversation. So ultimately, it's also, you have to recognize that you've got to first connect with yourself, so that you know your feelings around the situation, why this conversation is important, what you need to know from your partner, what you need your partner to know from you, and then you've got to say, I'm willing to share this with you, and I'm not going to be afraid to share this with you, and I also want to know what you think about it too. So again, wait till it's appropriate, and if it comes up and you can deal with it right on the spot, sometimes that's the best time to do it. If not, make sure you get back to it and don't just let it slide indefinitely, because it's going to come back again, and it might create more of an issue the next time. So all you're doing is letting things build up until it becomes something that you have no choice but to deal with, or it starts to become a wedge between you as well, and that's not what you want either. You want to just keep things out in the open.
Absolutely. We're going to jump right into number 3, and that's lack of self-knowledge. And we've talked about a lot on our show about a growth mindset, and a growth mindset is willing to look at yourself and say, what do I want to learn about me? What's the personal growth that I'm willing to face and look at for myself? And we know that that's the hardest thing to do, because it's so easy for us to blame the other people in our lives and say, well, you didn't make it safe, or you didn't hear me, or you don't see me, or there's all those different, I feel like you can't even see my face on the screen. But yeah, you didn't see me in that relationship, or it wasn't safe. So it's like a blaming and a withdrawal. And number 3 is knowing yourself, saying, I'm going to look at myself here and take responsibility for my part in a past relationship that wasn't successful. And when you do that, then you open the doors for what the next relationship's going to provide for you. You have to face all your own stuff. And there's lots there. And sometimes it's hard to face it on your own, so you need to reach out to a support system to do that.
Yeah, and recognize that you're the only one responsible for yourself and your self-awareness, and how you're choosing to move forward from where you're at to where you want to be. And it's lovely to have support in doing that, but still, ultimately, it's your responsibility to get from where you are to where you want to be.
Well, and that's where good life coaches come into place, right?
Very much so. Yeah. If you need the guidance, then you got to seek that out as well.
Because a good life coach will say, here's your situation. How about if we hold up a mirror to it and you see yourself in that? Where do you take responsibility and know that there's a part in it for you too? There's always, yeah. Always.
Okay, number 4 is your conversations never go past the small talk. And Lisa already mentioned that this is actually our conscious question of the day, but we're going to talk about this first, so you kind of know what it's all about, and then we'll talk about how we dealt with it as a conscious question, and the conscious tool of the toolkit as well. So if you find that your conversations really just stay superficial and it's all around small talk, that's sometimes okay when you don't know the person very well. It's maybe a new relationship. But once you've been with a person a while, you need to start talking about things that matter. You got to talk about things that are important to you, and it's got to be stimulating and meaningful, these conversations, if you want your relationship to grow and again build more emotional connection. It's important to know, what do you care about? You need to know, what does your partner care about, and you want them to know what you care about. And that's also a big part of finding out how compatible you are. Because you may as well find out sooner than later. There's no point finding out how uncompatible you are 10 years down the road when you could probably find it out in the first year. So, and if you are compatible, great. Keep going with it and work together on these things that you have shared interests. But if not, then you've got to decide what's right for you. Sometimes people are afraid of having these going past the small talk is because they're afraid of conflict, and they might have there might be little clues that, I feel this way about something, but by what, I heard her my partner said something that I thought, maybe she's not on the same page as I am in that topic because the conversation I heard her having, or the way she talked about something, and then you're like, maybe I better not bring up that topic, or so we'll just keep it light. Let's just keep it simple. But again, that really doesn't move the relationship forward, and it doesn't create emotional connection.
And we get lots of couples that come in and say, all we talk about is what's for dinner and what soccer game is on the weekend and who paid the bills for that and where are we camping in the summer. Like, it's just small talk. That's what I mean by small talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's going to rain on Sunday.
Just the little daily details.
Yeah, like it's nothing that means anything to their emotional connection.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be afraid to test the waters. Don't be afraid to say, hey, can I talk to you about this? And what do you think about this? And here's what I think about it. And really start exploring each other's beliefs and values and where you stand on things. I think that's very, very important.
So are we going to go right to the conscious question then?
Yes, so the conscious question, sorry.
Well, the conscious question is, what do we do when we're just too afraid to get past the small talk and talk about the big issues in a relationship, because it always ends up in a fight?
That's right, and that's that place where, there's that fear of conflict, right? And so you're like, okay, are we going to have to avoid this topic or a lot of big topics in order to avoid conflict?
And lots of couples do that, right? They go,
very much
things
so.
are kind of okay right now. I don't want to bring up a big thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk about money. I don't want to talk about sex.
I was going to say, they've got their list of things that they fight about, and so they say, okay, let's put that list over here, and we'll hope that it doesn't show up, and we'll try and manage our lives. But how do you manage a life or a relationship without dealing with all these big things? And usually it's the big important things that cause the fights, right? It's not
who's
it's
driving
not, are we having
our
craft
son to
dinner
soccer
or rice for supper? It's
No.
usually it's money, or it's sex, or it's parenting, or it's the big things. Yeah.
Or your jobs.
Your job, or
where are we going on vacation?
Going to buy a new car or not buy a new car? Yeah. So to answer that question, we are going to pull out one of our conscious toolkits, and what we have that we use when we're working with couples, we call it our couples commitment, and couples commitment contract, and we actually have couples, once they've decided to work with us and make a commitment, we say, here's something you need to commit to if you're going to make progress in your relationship. And so I'm going to read through it right off the page because
it's really good.
It's really, really good, yep. If anybody's taking notes, grab your pencil. So your couples commitment is, I will not look to my partner to meet my core needs of safety, worthiness, deservability, lovability, etc. And we've talked before about how it's not my responsibility to make Lisa happy, it's not Lisa's responsibility to make me happy. We do make each other happy because we do things together and we are connected.
We're emotionally connected.
However, that's not my partner's responsibility. I need to be doing things that make me happy and fulfill me, and vice versa. And I'll support you in the things that you want to do that make you happy. You support me in the things that I do that I want to make that make me happy. And it's the same thing for your safety and your worthiness. If you're having issues of safety and issues of worthiness or deservability or lovability, you need to find that, because those are childhood wounds, or they're things that have come up in your life that have created those blocks, and it's your responsibility to find them, feel them, heal them, and deal with those emotions as well. And so again, recognizing that it's not your partner's responsibility.
Right.
Second point, I am a mature adult, and when I am triggered by people or events, I am willing to look at myself without exceptions. So we've already done a complete show on triggers, and the biggest message with triggers is, when you're triggered, it's your stuff. That trigger is actually inside you already before the event or the person or the thing that was said triggered you. So,
and can I add to that? The person in front of you that triggered you did not plant the trigger in you.
Exactly.
It was already there.
Yeah, exactly. It's from a previous experience, and they just brought up an old memory, an old hurt, and that's why you became triggered. And so you really should be thanking that person for showing it to you so that you can have it on the surface, deal with it, and move on from it.
Absolutely.
Okay, point number 3. I understand it is never about what has triggered me, and this is a further explanation of it. It is an opportunity for me to see my own wounded inner child and become aware of where she needs understanding, compassion, love, and healing. So that's, again, what we just talked about. Next point, I commit to creating a safe place in which my partner can feel free to share feelings, thoughts, fantasies, dreams, hurts, and concerns without the fear that I am going to condemn, attack, lecture, criticize, blame, get angry, or simply withdraw. So there's a lot of points there. But it's basically saying that you are safe to say anything about anything you're feeling or dealing with, and your partner is saying, I'm going to be there, and I'm not going to withdraw, attack, lecture. I'm going to listen and say, okay, that's you. Finally, to feel safe in my relationship, I need this for my partner and my partner's needs. I need this from my partner, and my partner needs this from me. And so that's your commitment to your partner if you're willing to go to that level of commitment.
And then we have them both sign it, and we witness it,
Mhm.
and they take it home.
Yep.
Right? And it can go on the fridge, go in the bedroom, or however they want it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they can always go back and say, am I doing this? Have I been doing this?
Right.
And
It's
it's
a
really
check-in.
important. Yeah, it's a check-in. And again, it's one of those places we talk about all the time. These things aren't, well, they're simple, but they're not easy. So it takes practice. Lots of practice. And so it's always one step at a time. And when you make mistakes, you say, whoops, I screwed up. Give me a do-over. And you try again next time.
Great, we got
All right.
lots of topics to cover,
Yep,
so
let's
I'm
go.
going to jump right on to number
Okay.
5. It's going to be a quick one, but number 5 is you always feel like you're competing against each other. And if you've got two competing personalities, that happens often because you love to be better than the one, and that really reflects on somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong. And you're always trying to one-up on each other. And, you know, in the beginning of a relationship, it can be really fun and flirty and kind of exciting. But deep into the relationship, when it's still competitive and, you know, I don't like the way you make fried eggs or, you know, the way you hit a golf ball, right? It just becomes, and then it's contemptuous, right? You're always, it feels like criticism. So that competition is fun in the beginning, but it's a barrier to emotional connection.
Yeah, in the beginning, sometimes you're kind of showing your strengths and where
Having fun
where
with
you
it.
excel. Yeah, exactly. But you don't want
After
that.
a while, no,
yeah.
it doesn't work.
Again, it starts to separate you instead of being interesting and bringing you together. Yeah. Okay, number 6, working extra hard so you and your partner can be financially secure. All right, and that really comes from people's value systems often, right? And sometimes if you've got two people that their value system is very strongly towards financial gain and being financially secure and independent, all those kinds of things, it seems like that might be a good fit and your good compatibility and all those kinds of things. But it might be at the expense of emotional connection, because if you're spending most of your time and energy on working and being financially secure at the expense of quality time and having a quality relationship, that can really make the relationship suffer.
Well, it's the same as small talk.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
you're doing is working. You're
So
not
it's,
addressing anything in the
exactly.
relationship.
So it's really important when you're not working, when you get home from work, you have to really make it so it is quality time, and you're having not small talk, but you're having quality conversations, and you're really looking for that emotional
saying,
connection.
What could we do with our money
With
that
our
we've
money.
earned today?
Yeah, like what exciting
What fun
things are we
for
going to?
connection
Yeah,
can we do?
definitely. Like, yeah, what do you want to create together with what you were doing?
In the daytime.
Yeah.
All right, and the other thing that jumps into my mind over that one is sometimes we work to avoid, right? It becomes a little bit of an addiction, right? I
Yeah.
don't really want to face the issues in my relationship, so I'm just going to stay at work because I'm good at my work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I feel successful there. I'm not good in my relationship at home, so I'll avoid it
You
by
might
staying
be
at work.
much more successful potentially at work than at home in your relationship, and so you
do
enjoy
that
being that in
instead.
space. Yeah, you make that choice.
Right, so number 7, spending a lot of time with our partner. So this is, we're going to address
It's
like
almost the
issues of
opposite.
abandonment, right? Of issues of when you were a kid, you were left all the time, and so you've got sort of this idea that you need people around you all the time, or you need your partner to be with you all the time, and then you're offended when they want to have time on their own, say, or I'm going to go away for a guy's weekend golfing, and you're just like, what? You don't want to spend your time with me? I'm offended and I'm hurt.
Leave me all alone.
Yeah, and how could you do that to me? But really, then you have to look at yourself and say, why do I feel so offended that he wants to spend a weekend away?
Yeah.
Right? And own that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's yours to face. It's your own abandonment or something that, you know, comes up in your own childhood that you need to address.
Mm-hmm. And you certainly want to have a conversation around it and make sure that it's not like, oh, I'm going to go on a golfing weekend, but you're like, yeah, but we have this wedding this weekend. I'd be like, oh, too bad, right? You know,
It's
yeah, you've got to have that conversation and say, you know, you should be happy that it doesn't affect you that I'm going to go golfing this weekend. You're happy that I'm going to go have a good fun weekend. Now you're free to make plans with one of your friends or do something that you would like to do that makes you happy. And as long as it's not something that's like, boy, I really wanted you to be there for this, you know, then you'd say, okay, I'll do a different golf weekend, right?
But that comes with connection.
It comes with connection and good
safety.
conversation
Yeah.
and safety, and exactly, yeah. But you don't want to be, that's legitimate as opposed to just that needy place where it's just like, there's no reason for me not to go golfing, but you're still feeling sad and offended and hurt and rejected. Yeah, exactly. Okay, number 8 is fear of being open and honest. So intimacy requires openness between the partners and honesty. So if you're avoiding that, you know, there's a reason there's like this everyday avoidance of about your experiences and how you and what you were going to share. It really is an erosion of the connection. So again, it's all about knowing what, or being comfortable sharing what's really going on with yourself, and being able to be honest and not saying, oh, I gotta sugarcoat this. And sometimes you'll withhold things because you think you might get a negative response, and that's not a good reason to withhold what's going on. It's your partner's allowed to have a negative response to something that might be going on with you, and then again you could be able to discuss it openly on it. Yeah, and that again comes with when there's enough safety that you can share what you need to share and be open and honest. And again, if you have fear around that, that's again one of your issues that you have to deal with yourself and say, why would I be afraid to share that? Why would I be afraid of how you might react? And oftentimes I think people will find that they think a person's going to react like at a 7 or an 8 out of 10, and then they tell them and they're just like, oh my goodness, and then it turns out they might react with a 2 or a 3 out of 10, or they might even just have nothing but a compassion for that, or you know, be quite understanding within it. And I certainly know for a lot of women, when a man opens up and is willing to be honest and vulnerable,
It's very attractive.
yeah, exactly. And then instead of them
Very attractive.
instead of them blowing up, they're just like, oh my God, I can't believe you shared that with me.
Yeah.
I feel, almost feel honored that that they shared that and that you've created the safety for that, and they really want to be part of that, right? And part of supporting the partner in that.
And I'm going to add a quick side note to that. You know, I had trouble in my previous relationship to be open and honest. And so there's times that I have to go to you and say, I'm committed to open and honesty in this relationship, so I need to share something with you that it's hard for me to share. And so, and often I have to tell you how to respond. Like, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to fix it. I just need you to hear me. I need to share it.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the couple's commitment.
Yeah.
Please don't withdraw or blame or shame me for it, or
And it's often not a big thing, but you just recognize it as a pattern. So you say, because my mind is wanting me to do this, I'm making a different choice. I want you to be aware that my ego is saying this, but I'm making this choice, and I want you to be aware that that's
and
where
I'm
I'm
very
at.
vulnerable when I'm doing that.
Very much so. Yeah.
So, and when we create that vulnerability and that safety for our partners, it's magic.
Yeah,
It's magic.
exactly. Very connecting.
All right, so number 9.
Oh, one more point on that one
sorry.
is just the fact that this often that can lead to that place of that caretaker position or that pleaser place, right? Where it's like, in order to avoid conflict or avoid being honest, and it's all about, now I'm going to try and be more concerned about this other person's feelings and where they're at, and not share my feelings openly and honestly. But then what happens is you're sacrificing your own expression of who you are by just saying, I'm going to always try and keep this on the down low and keep the other person happy and not rock the boat in any way.
So I'm going to jump into 9. When one person in the partnership always feels like the teacher, so it's almost like someone feels intellectually superior, and the other person's always going to feel inferior, and that's a problem because it's almost like a parent-child relationship. where someone's always going to feel less than and the other person feels like they're going to have control over everything. And that goes back to the somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong. And when you are in that mindset, it's lose, lose, lose.
It is.
Always.
And I think sometimes those relationships seem attractive because that's what the person, a wounded person may need.
Come and look after me.
Yeah, somebody might say, I want somebody who's intellectually superior to me, or that can almost be like a parent to me because I was maybe missing some of that in where I'm at emotionally. And somebody else might think, oh, here's my chance to be the smarter one, the one that can save you and guide you through this. And certainly you can, as a couple, you can work through those things if you're both working on what's created this place that you're now compensating for that, and there's ego places that you're having to deal with. But if you're not willing to do that, you're going to find out that it's really not a relationship that's going to be serving you long term. Right.
And what also happens is, if I allow that, then I start building resentment.
Exactly.
Right?
And
it's going to come out.
And that's going to create this wall.
And I'm going to start resenting it. Even though I'm allowing it, I'm going to resent it.
Yeah, exactly.
And eventually, I'm going to blow.
Yeah.
Right? Because
so.
It builds up and it builds up.
Yeah. Great. We're going to move on to the next one. Number 10. You lose confidence in yourself around them or the other person. So again, this is that place where you might even start feeling resentment, jealousy, or nervousness, or this lack of confidence around the other person. So if you're doing that, again, that's another sign that you're maybe not compatible, and you might have got together for the wrong reasons, right? And again, these things can be healed in the relationship, but sometimes it's almost like you need to say, boy, I really didn't attract maybe the best partner in this situation.
Or what am I supposed to learn from this?
So let me learn from this and maybe take another shot at it once I've dealt with this part of myself. So you'll notice this if your partner tends to have a habit of like interrupting or over-explaining, or what they call now mansplaining.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't that a good one? Yeah, so there's a lot of mansplaining going on. That's a telltale sign. And again, putting down the other partner is even a bigger clue to that. And and there's always insecurities around that too, right? The person that's putting the person down is compensating for their own insecurities. But then the person that's saying that I'll stay in this relationship and take that is also dealing with some significant insecurities. And so both people have to look at what they're doing in that situation. And so you have to recognize that if you're being put down, that has nothing to do with you. It has to do with, well, first of all, what you're allowing, but it also has to do with what this other person is his insecurities that he's trying to cover up. Or she is trying to cover up, I should know, I should say. He, that is.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we're assuming that it's guys.
So yeah.
No, we're not.
but long term, this isn't something that will ever allow emotional connection. It's always going to be a barrier, and the barrier is going to get bigger, and it's going to drive you apart.
Great. So we're jumping into number 11, staying busy to keep a sense of independence in the relationship. And I'll be the first one to be guilty of that in a previous relationship where you just fill your calendar up so that you're avoiding like emotional connection. Well, I'm going to volunteer over here, and I'm going to coach soccer, and I'm going to serve snack day at the school, and I'm going to, right? And you're just totally packing your calendar full so that you don't have any time left for your partnership or any time for emotional connection. And so, if we were to help people in that situation, we say, like, check in with your partner. Are we having enough time together? Do we feel connected? Where are we at in our relationship? Can we maybe get a babysitter for the weekend and have a night away, just the two of us, to get connected again, right? And I think everybody in a partnership really appreciates that. It's like, oh, well, then I don't mind if you're busy and during the week with kids and family and responsibilities, if you're going to give me some time to connect emotionally.
For sure. Yep. Okay, number 12 is downplaying compliments. And that's an interesting one, that it actually how it can affect relationships and this connection. And it may seem very innocent to do that, and a lot of people, that's their default because they don't want to, don't have to say anything. But, sometimes it's actually deep-rooted in childhood behaviors where you either had a history of being put down, and so when somebody compliments you, you're just like, well, I can't accept that because, I can take criticism, but I can't take compliments, right? Some people are much more comfortable taking criticism than they are taking compliments. So it's either a deflection of compliments sometimes, or it's even this, or you might even go the opposite way, where it's almost this constant need for reassurance.
Right.
So you're like,
They're
please
both
keep
false,
keep
right?
reassuring me. But yeah. So it's
That's
again,
only because there's lack
it's
of
a compensation for sure. Yeah.
self-love.
Yeah, and this is going to create this imbalance in this relationship. It's where somebody's you want to compliment the person, they can't accept it. You're just like, well.
It's like giving them a gift they won't receive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Saying, I think you're great, and you're saying, no, I'm not.
Oh,
And then
no,
you're just
I'm not
like,
that great.
so
You're
you're
much better than I
you're
am.
telling me I'm wrong, right? So
Yeah,
then it's like
right.
it's this constant, unconscious back and forth that really doesn't. Again, it's not creating connection in any way. It's again.
It creates
just
barrier.
create another barrier.
Mhm. And so the 13th barrier is unmet needs. It's impossible for the people in our life to meet our needs because it's not their job. Right? Our job is to meet our own needs and be fulfilled within ourselves, and then we actually become a great partner. Because I'm not looking for you to compliment me all day long and tell me everything I need to do and feel and understand about me. I need to do that. That's my job. And if I'm starving for that attention and I need it for my own sense of who I am, then I can't be connected to you because I'm looking for you for needs that are actually I have to meet for myself. So it happens all the time. People say, well, you'll come into a coaching situation and they'll say, my partner doesn't see me, my partner doesn't hear me. I feel like I have no value or no voice, and this relationship just feels empty. But we have to realize that if you look to your partner for all those things, you're looking in the wrong place. You need to look in the mirror and start meeting those needs for yourself. And then you will be a good partner. You have to be the partner that you want.
And your partner's ultimately always going to let you down in some way or another, right? Like they're going to they may do their best, but it's never, because it's not coming from inside you and you've got this need, the partner's never going to be able to give you what you do need in that way. And so it's always going to be a letdown in one way or another.
And that's our weekly challenge is on this one, on this topic.
Excellent.
And the weekly challenge is in a previous relationship. It's not in this relationship because I faced this one already and I chose not to bring it into this relationship. But it's so valuable because we get this question all the time in this challenge. And the challenge is not asking for what I need, right? I was in a pleaser role and allowed the relationship to evolve according to how do I just keep you happy as my partner. And as much as that looks good, and I can hear people going, why wouldn't I want to keep my partner happy? What are you teaching here? But pretending that everything's okay and just hoping that everything will be okay if I keep you happy, there's no emotional connection. All I'm doing is playing to your game. I'm trying to keep you happy and say, well, how do you want this? Well, let me do that. How do you want that? Let me do that. And then you don't even know who I am.
No.
And I get lost in that relationship.
And all I see is the role that you're trying to play and what you're trying to accomplish with that role to please me.
And I'm going to add to that too, and the other part of it, and we call it the chronic destination addiction. As a previous pleaser, I'd say, well, it's going to get better when the kids go to school, or it's going to get better when I have my dream job. It's going to get better if we buy a new car. It's going to get better if we go on vacation. Or now it's going to get better now that the kids are going to graduate, right? And it never gets better because you can't rely on those outside things for the connection that you desire with your partner. It just doesn't work.
Exactly. A point I'd like to make is that part where you don't ask for what you need. That can be a very passive-aggressive thing that you can do to your partner too, because you're kind of like, so I'm not going to ask what you need. I'm going to hope that you can guess what I need or read my mind. It's a common one.
Absolutely.
And then when you don't do that, then I can throw you under the bus because you didn't know what I wanted and you didn't do what I needed.
Absolutely.
And it's like, gosh, it'd be so much easier if we just asked for what we need. Have that, and again, that comes again when you're emotionally connected. Those things you're having those conversations on a regular basis, and then that stuff doesn't play out that way.
And we do the 5 love languages. We do a workshop on that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you find out what is the love language of your partner. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe they
That could be very
like
helpful.
gifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or they want the acts of service is what they desire. So as soon
That
as
can
you
be very
find those
helpful.
things out, then
Mm-hmm.
you start meeting their, bringing happiness to the relationship by
Mm-hmm.
meeting their love language, meeting them where they are
Mm-hmm.
in their love language.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good. Okay, number 14 is you feel bored. And this is actually one of the major signs of incompatibility if there's a boredom showing up in the relationship. So if you find that what your partner talks about, the topics that they're interested in, are things that bore you, and you're not interested in these conversations they want to have, and vice versa, you've really got to look at this relationship and say, am I going to be able to continue to grow an emotional connection with this person? So if you find that, again, boredom's pretty easy to spot. You can usually see it because people are on their phones instead of having
They're just
conversations
disconnected.
And you'll
Disassociated.
also find that the bored partners are going to start being more interested in talking to their friends, going out with their buddies, or being at work, or being anywhere but engaging with their partner, because they're bored with what's going on in that relationship. And again, there's no sign of emotional connection there, and it's certainly not something that you're in the process of growing and making more connection there.
But then the other person too has to take responsibility. If all I want to talk about is what they're doing while they're doing a video game,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get bored.
Yeah, well, for sure.
Right? So you
yeah.
gotta own that if that's
Mhm.
all you want to do and all you want to talk about.
Yeah. Then
You're not looking for emotional connection with
no,
me.
no.
Right?
Not unless you want
I
to
was
get
gonna say
involved
climate change.
get involved with another gamer.
Okay.
I hear ya.
Okay, so number 15 to emotional connection is I get to talk about sex. Yay! Now I have everybody's attention,
Yeah.
right? So, and on this one, it's when the relationship is only physical, right? When it's only about
Mhm.
sex, because we talked about before, you don't want to talk about the big issues. Your small talk is all you're doing, and you're like, well, if we can do sex well, why don't we just do that instead
Mhm.
of actually connecting on a real emotional level where we're actual partners
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Or even that place where he's like, oh, we're a beautiful couple, let's go show ourselves off, I want to take you to this, and you want to have me at that, because, or, I'm not saying you and me, but I'm saying, if that's where you're at, where you're like, you think, well, I'm an attractive person, I need an attractive partner, and then you're just like, oh, now I've got what I want, because now,
We look attractive together.
we look attractive together, and so let's
Mhm.
go do life together.
Mhm.
And, it can be a little on the shallow side.
And it's true. Like, we get people say they love, like, the relationship's exciting when they're flirting and there's foreplay and it's fun
Mhm.
but
And you expect that in the early beginning. I mean, you want to have physical attraction,
Oh, of
certainly.
course.
That actually really can lead towards emotional connection. But if
there's
if
nothing
it-
intellectual and there's no
if it-
emotional connection,
it has to go beyond the physical.
right? And then because you're going to get tired of that too if
Mhm.
that's all you have,
Mhm.
right? It's
Or you'll see somebody else that's equally or more attractive, and then you're
and
just
you're
like,
I'd
okay.
like a little bit more of that
Yeah.
that
And
flirty stuff again,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So
Okay, moving on.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to add here, and Don might have, early when we first met, like, he got really clear, and we're going to talk about this in the workshop on Sunday, is being brave enough to say, what is your intention in this relationship? Like, do you want a long-term relationship? Do you just want somebody to date? Do you, are you after sex?
It's an important question for people that have, especially like at our age, or you're in that place where you've been divorced, or you've been in a few relationships, you're out of relationships, you're now maybe online dating or whatever you're doing,
Mhm.
and you don't know, like, if this person's only been separated or divorced for a month, you can say, like, what are you, like, are you,
What are you looking for?
What are you looking for? Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
at what stage are you at
Mhm.
right now? Because those stages change, right?
Right.
And, somebody that's, I've been single for 3 years now, I'm ready to settle down, have a serious relationship again. Somebody that says, well, I've been divorced for 3 months, I'm kind of looking to play the field and have some fun.
Right.
Right?
And
So,
then too, like,
yep.
lots of times when their people are later in life, they've got families, so you have to be open and honest and say, I've got 3 kids that I co-parent.
Mhm.
Like,
So I've
that's
got
me.
X
And-
amount
yeah,
of time
I'm
too,
a
right?
full meal deal. You
Mhm.
you get me,
Yeah.
you get kids.
Yeah,
So
you
do you
get kids
want
half
that?
time. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you got to be brave enough to ask the tough questions.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay, number 16, attempting to make tense situations lighter by making a joke. And I mean, there's some value to that. Okay, but at the same time, it can be an avoidance strategy,
It's
right?
avoidance.
And it can be a place, and it's also a place of avoiding conflict or avoiding a tough conversation. So the person might want to have a serious conversation. You turn it into a joke. That person feels like, well, I can never have a serious conversation with this
Right.
person.
It's not available.
Exactly, yeah. Or you might be, again, trying to cover up your own mistake that you made or some shortcoming that you feel you have. And so I'm going to make a joke so that people are laughing, or this deflects this from, where I messed up or where I'm not comfortable dealing with the situation or talking about it.
Absolutely.
So, again, humor can be very, in the right moment, it can actually be something that can very much connect you too, right? Like if it's, because, again, humor is fun, and I think a lot of women like funny men, right? The people that make them laugh. And I mean, everybody likes people that make them laugh, right? 'Cause
Yes.
people enjoy laughing.
But it's
But
what
if,
your
but if you're
intention
but if you're
behind it.
avoiding something that's serious and something that needs to be dealt with, it becomes a barrier, because then it's like, oh, I really wanted to have that conversation,
And now
and
you're
you just
making a joke
you
of
blew
it.
it off, and
Mhm.
that's the end of that,
Mhm.
and it kind of loses its momentum. Yeah.
All right, so number 17 is music. Like, what do you enjoy as a couple in your relationship? Because if you're hardcore, like, rap and, like, heavy metal stuff, and I like soft rock, and we're trying to, enjoy a weekend together, like, it's going to come up. We're not saying this one's a deal breaker, but if, like, for an example, we like country music and we like country music dancing, that's something that connects us. Like,
Very much
so much. Like, and if you said, I would never go country dancing and listen to that music, it's garbage, and I value that, then I'm like, wow, I don't know if I
Yeah,
can
you're
have
thinking,
fun.
yeah, you'd be thinking, I'm missing out on a big chunk of what I enjoy doing, right?
Yeah,
If you can't do that.
could I give that up,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you're willing to compromise, but and I'm gonna add, like, we went to the Jazz and Blues Festival here in Lethbridge, and it was tons of fun. But I like jazz, you like the blues, right? And there was like I really commented, I'm like, I like jazz, but jazz gives you the blues. Like, you don't like it as much, right?
No.
And then when you start to make comments of how much you're not liking it,
You get triggered.
yeah, I'm triggered. Like, it's harder for me to enjoy.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like you're judging my choices on what I like.
We can
right?
revisit this as a weekly challenge one of these days. One of our recent weekly challenges.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah. So that's just an example, right?
All right, number 18 is attachment difficulties, and we can do a whole workshop. We do an entire workshop on attachment style, and we could do at least one show on attachment style as well. So your attachment style is basically what you experienced earlier in life, how you dealt with separation in your formative years, and again, that has to do with whether you're the first child, a middle child, the baby child is of big importance. How connected
How
your parents,
attentive your parents
how
were.
attentive your parents were, which parent was you were closer to.
How they met your needs or didn't meet your needs.
Exactly. So all these places where your needs were or weren't met are going to affect how you want to attach in a relationship in the future. And once you recognize that, and again, there's a whole workshop on that to figure out your attachment style and how you relate, and then the person you're attracted to and their attachment style, and again, how compatible you are there. So again, there's this place where if there's fear of abandonment but the opposite is this fear of being smothered or engulfed, right? So there's either that desire to, it can be very clingy or it can be very standoffish, right? So you're like, I want to cling on, and then of course often a clinger will hang on to somebody who's kind of somebody who wants to be a little standoffish, and then it really can
it's
be
up for them.
exactly. So and then it really becomes a bit of a struggle. And again, it's one of those things where you attract the perfect person to deal with these issues for both of you. And in a relationship, you can work through all of that and come to a beautiful, connected place. But if you don't deal with that, it's always going to become a huge issue, and it's going to be it's going to cause all kinds of stress, really, because the one person wants to be clingy, and the other person is like, the last thing they want is to be clung onto or feel like they're being smothered, and the person that and vice versa. So
Absolutely. The next one is addictions. and that's a big one. We can do a whole workshop on addictions too. And we want to make it clear, like, addictions take everything away from a relationship. It is one of the biggest barriers to emotional connection. Because as soon as something stressful comes up in the relationship, you're going to turn to your addiction. And let's be clear, there's the biggies. There's alcohol, drugs, gambling, and sex. Those are the biggies, and we can judge those really quick. But addictions can look really good, like exercise and healthy eating, and even like wanting to run marathons, or, you know, being obsessed with
Just a workaholic even.
yeah, or work, right? So it can look really good.
Yeah.
So we have to be clear, addictions can look better than some addictions, but they're still addictions, and they're going to take away from your relationship.
Yeah, you could be addicted to a hobby, you know,
Yeah.
like somebody that's, you know, every free hour at the moment, you know, from a guy's perspective, gaming, or I want to be in the garage working on my project vehicle.
Right. I want to be or washing my car, and
Yeah.
you know, anything but to face what's going on in the
Yeah,
relationship.
or somebody, you could be a scrapbooker or a crafter, and
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, I'm still working on this, my
Well,
next
let's
project.
face it, technology is our biggest addiction.
At this point now, that's
yeah,
right now.
we're so addicted to being connected to our phones and our technology.
And our social media, for sure. Even though social media
Although
is a
we
beautiful
love
thing,
social
media. Yeah.
It's just
don't allow it to
it's
become
when
an
it
addiction.
when it affects our relationships and our families.
Very much so. All right, and number 20 is withholding information in order to protect your partner. And again, one of those things that seems like it could be a good thing, right? Because you're thinking, you know what, I'm not going to mention this because I'm not going to rock the boat. I don't know how they're going to react. I don't want them to know that there's issues here. And so it's these places where you're protecting yourself possibly from where you're anxious or you're worried or whatever, and you're saying, oh, I don't need to share that. I'll deal with that myself. And I'll be honest, that's that's kind of my go-to, or that was my default, was I'll deal with my problems. I don't need to share my problems with you, or not I do with you, but with previous partners. And in my life, it was like I'll be responsible for myself. So where I'm stressed, where I'm anxious, where I'm worried, I don't want to share that. I don't want to show vulnerability in those ways, right? I want to show the place that I can handle it. So it's always that place of, oh, I can handle it. So I'll handle my stuff, and hopefully you'll handle yours, and then we don't have to.
Then we're not connected.
Yeah, so again,
right?
we're
We
not
don't-
connecting that way.
And we're not supporting each other, and we're not
Exactly.
being,
And
supportive and
yeah,
gentle.
and so
and
you lose
understanding and
that
compassionate.
opportunity to receive
To
that
connect.
support. Yeah, and receiving support is a huge place to connect with another person, because the person, and because it's just like saying, I'm going to give you a gift, and you say, oh, I can't take it. So it's that whole thing where it's like, you need support, here's support, and you receive it.
Please take it.
You're very connected through that
Absolutely.
process.
Great. Well, those are our
Very well done.
topics. Those are the big topics for our workshop this weekend. So we're excited, and it's a Conscious Quest workshop called Emotional Connections on Sunday, the 23rd, from 1 till 4 at Hudson's Pub. It's $15 each, and it's fun and interactive, and we say these are fun workshops that you get to learn about yourself. You get to order drinks and food and just come and enjoy the group, and I promise you'll have a lot of fun. And I posted on social media today, and if you're trying to get your partner there, tell them, hey, you can come and have a beer and wings, and if you don't like the content, you can slip out
out
the
the door.
back jack. But we've never had anybody leave one of
No.
our workshops because they didn't like the content. There's always something for everybody.
Well, that's just it. And I mean, we just ran through all these points, but the thing is, doing these exercises, you'll get so much more awareness, because sometimes you look at those things and say, well, I don't know, do I do that? Do I do that?
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll say, well, I know what my partner does, or I know what my
Yeah, we
ex
always
did.
know.
It's easy to do that, but you're kind of, when you're looking at yourself, you're saying, I'm not sure if I do any of that. You start doing some exercises, listen to other people talk and share. Sometimes,
You'll get clarity.
then you'll get some clarity. And then, again, awareness is always the first step, and that's a huge part.
Right. So we're LifeWorks International, Don and Lisa Hogue. We're licensed in workshop and life coaches for singles, couples, families, corporate. We do events to help you create more success in your personal and professional life. People hire us when they're tired of the struggle and they're ready to make and create a life that works.
And we are always learning and growing. And once you become fearless, life becomes limitless.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.